It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. In an era of chaos, confusion, and craziness, Ference is a voice for common sense. As a financial literacy educator, speaker, and entrepreneur, Ference cuts through the noise to help us understand how current events affect our money, economy, and our freedom. Now, here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com. We also have an app that's gotten very popular. It's the Your Personal Bank app, so you can always go there also. Recently, Congress passed and President Trump signed what was called the Big Beautiful Bill. I rarely talk about legislation in progress because so many things can change throughout the process. But once it's been signed into law, we have something tangible and solid to look at. And unfortunately, like in many different areas, there's been a lot of misunderstanding, misinformation, and outright incorrect information out there about the Big Beautiful Bill that is now law. One of those things happens to be the no tax on tips provision. Now, I mentioned on this show earlier, I was very much in favor of that. That helps working class Americans primarily, those in service occupations that do not tend to pay a lot, frankly. And if those people can keep more of their money, that's going to be beneficial for not only them, but our economy in general. Now, one of the misconceptions out there about the no tax on tips is whether you can receive that or the standard deduction. The fact of the matter is this: the no tax on tips benefit is structured as what's called an above the line deduction. This means you do not have to itemize to claim it, and you can still take the standard deduction. Again, there's some misinformation that's been being shared about this, so I want to clarify. The limit is you can earn up to $25,000 per year on income received through tips, and yet still receive your standard deduction. For an individual in 2025, that's $15,000. For a couple, that's $30,000 standard deduction. What this means is a single filer who earns income from tips can receive $25,000 of that tax-free and receive the $15,000 standard deduction. You get to add those together. So that person can earn $40,000 a year without paying any tax at all. Again, that's going to help lower income Americans. That is a good thing for those individuals and for our economy in general. Inflation has impacted those people more than anyone, and this tax relief will benefit them significantly. I also like the limitation of $25,000 a year in regards to no tax on tips. This is to prevent somebody just reporting, "Oh, I receive all my income is through tips." And there would have been a significant temptation to do that by maximizing the deduction for that at $25,000 a year. That helps the people that need the help the most, while preventing the temptation of others who earn quite a bit more to take advantage of that. So I think that was a good trade-off. One of the other provisions in the Big Beautiful Bill that's significant is reducing taxes on Social Security benefits. Even the Social Security Commissioner stated this is a historic step forward. The Social Security Administration estimates 88% of seniors will now pay no federal income tax on their Social Security benefits. That's a massive tax cut for older Americans. And what's ironic from a political standpoint, if you look at the 2024 election, it was seniors that voted for Trump at the lowest percentage of any age group, yet the vast majority of them are going to receive a significant tax benefit from the Big Beautiful Bill. I find that quite ironic. Here's some of the facts, though. Forget the noise. The legacy media likes to muddy the waters. Feelings, politics get in the way sometimes. But here are the facts. The average Social Security benefit in America today is $24,000 a year. The standard deduction for an individual for 2025 is $15,750. Seniors receive a $2,000 senior deduction on their tax returns per individual. And now the big beautiful bill has now added a $6,000 new senior bonus deduction. Therefore, total deductions for an individual senior are $23,750. Again, as I stated at the beginning, the average Social Security benefit in the United States is $24,000. The total deductions, in essence, match the average benefit. Therefore, the amount of tax on Social Security for the average Social Security beneficiary will be zero. Anyone below average, of course, will also be zero. The only seniors that are going to pay any tax going forward on Social Security will be the higher income earners. Again, just like on the no tax on tips, this benefits the bottom 88% of Social Security income recipients. These are the people most affected by inflation and now will get the most benefit from the big, beautiful bill. This will benefit them not only individually, allowing them to keep more of their money, they're paying less taxes, but also will benefit the economy in general. They will have more discretionary money available to spend, invest, etc. Another little discussed provision in the big, beautiful bill that I find very interesting is the $1,000 government-funded investment account for babies. Every U.S. citizen born after December 31st of 2024 and before January 1st of 2029, the federal government will make a one-time contribution of $1,000 into a tax-deferred account that will track the overall stock market. This initiative reflects the right ideas. It does empower families to start building wealth. One of the things I share with the Your Personal Bank concept is what we call a family legacy plan. This is a common tool used by wealthy families. What they often do is the grandparents of a wealthy family, when a grandchild is born, will invest in a high cash value insurance policy to earn dividends, insured, guaranteed, tax-free, and highly liquid. I've used numerous examples over the years. The grandparents will typically fund this policy until the grandchild becomes of responsible age on a tax-free basis. This is also commonly referred to as leapfrogging and is a very common way for wealthy families to pass wealth from one generation to the next tax-free. The reason why this is so effective, if the grandparents fund $10,000 a year, that equals a little over $800 a month. That grandchild will have over $12 million over an average life expectancy, insured, guaranteed, tax-free, and highly liquid. That's assuming they do not access the funds and use it to invest in other assets using positive arbitrage, as we discuss on this show frequently, to increase the returns even further. A question I often ask people is, can you live off of $12 million throughout your lifetime tax-free? Now, the reason why this works so effectively is if the grandparents get this started while the child is born, it can often help pay for their first car, college tuition. It might help them make the down payment on their first home, start a new business, any other number of financial needs throughout their lifetime. It also can then supplement their retirement all on a tax-free basis. It's a very powerful concept. Sometimes it's referred to as the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. This initiative through the big beautiful bill is a step in the right direction to get more people to think in this way regarding investing in America, in investing for their future. Now, a few other details about the family legacy plan I often get asked about are, what if the grandparents pass away prior to the grandchild's age of responsibility. Well, these are typically owned by a trust. If the grandparents do pass away, the kids, their kids, or the grandchild's parents typically are the beneficiaries. It passes to them through the trust, again, on a tax-free basis. The trust often includes instructions for the beneficiaries of the trust to continue funding these policies until the age of responsibility. Once that grandchild is of age that they can continue funding the plan going forward, because they're now earning enough income in a business or career or whatever, they can change ownership to that grandchild at any time. Again, all on a tax-free basis. Why would the grandchild do that and continue funding it? Well, they believe in it now. It probably helped them purchase their first car, paid for college, paid for the down payment for their first home. And it's something their grandparents started for them. They've seen it work personally in their own lives. And again, using the example of $10,000 a year or a little over $800 a month for wealthy grandparents, that's not a lot of money, frankly. Even for somebody who's just getting started in their career or business, $800 a month is not a tremendous amount of money, especially given the fact it's highly liquid and tax-free, and they can create positive arbitrage when they access those funds if and when they need them. So family legacy plans are tremendously powerful tools. It's something that once you understand it, you just wish your parents or grandparents had understood while you were young. If you are a parent or grandparent and want to see how this can really impact your kids or grandkids tremendously, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information. Stay tuned in the next segment. I got a few more things I want to clarify with the big, beautiful bill.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to contact me at yourpersonalbank.com, yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com. A few other things about the big, beautiful bill that I want to clarify. Again, there's been a lot of misinformation out there, so I'm just going to stick with the facts here. And that is the cuts to Medicaid. This has been a common talking point from many Democrats, the legacy media, and frankly, they're just lying through their teeth. The fact of the matter is, no U.S. citizen would be against this if they understood the facts. And here's a few of the facts. Medicaid eligibility will be based on citizenship status. All it's saying is that the people who are here illegally don't get to use Medicaid. Some have even saying that isn't happening, so you agree with this cut. Should not be an issue. Also, there's a lot of bad debt regarding Medicare, and the big beautiful bill takes steps to eliminate that bad debt. Now, most people don't understand what Medicare bad debt is. Most of the time, bad debt is where you have a debt with a hospital beyond what your coverage pays. If you have private health insurance, your health insurance is going to pay their price, and then you have to pay the difference or the leftover price. If you don't pay the hospital bill, the difference of what the insurance company already paid them, that's known as bad debt. Now, private health insurance companies are not going to pay it for you, so individuals often get stuck with that debt. Previously, Medicaid would cover up to 65% of that debt. Now, hospitals would often use that to their advantage because they would increase the prices for people on Medicaid, therefore making the bad debt increase dramatically. And the American taxpayer is on the hook for 65% of that. The big beautiful bill eliminates that. Therefore, hospitals can't charge more for people on Medicaid because they're not going to get any extra money for it like they were doing for years. So they were jacking the prices on people for Medicaid so that Medicaid would then pay them more, the hospitals were, and the money ultimately comes from taxpayers. Who could be against that? Cut number 3 just states that hospitals can no longer charge people on Medicare and Medicaid more than if they're on private insurance. In other words, they have to charge them the same. Who could be against that? So when you have people out there saying they're going to cut millions of people from Medicare or Medicaid or 200 billion from Medicaid, the reality is they're cutting out the waste and the fraud. The other thing that they're doing is they're eliminating people who are receiving Medicaid that are not eligible for it, primarily illegal aliens. The fact that they were even put on Medicaid in the first place is against the law. And I, like many people, would like to see some justice for those that did that. The fact of the matter is, my tax dollars and your tax dollars should not go towards paying for illegal aliens' medical expenses. It happens to be against the law. And now the big, beautiful bill will actively take those that are on Medicaid that are not eligible for it due to not being citizens of the United States. It will take them off those rolls, which will save us literally billions of dollars. Now, there's some bigger picture things to think about regarding the big, beautiful bill. It's going to fundamentally change the focus from a financial standpoint of our country, and it's a really, really big deal. And this is what I mean about it. For example, it cut $1 billion for Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood has come out and stated that they will likely have to close about 200 offices. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, for one, it changes the profit motive behind abortion. It's a documented fact that a significant portion of the funding used for Planned Parenthood was used as a money laundering operation for the Democratic Party. This is part of the reason why the Democratic Party championed Planned Parenthood so much. And if you think $1 billion might not seem like a lot, it doesn't take that much of a difference for a congressperson to win a race. A few million here, a few million there, and you're in business. And if only 20% of the funds that went to Planned Parenthood ended up in Democratic representatives' hands through campaign donations, that's over $200 million of free money to fund ads, to pay for election or re-election campaigns. I always say, if you want to understand something, follow the money trail. The other big deal about this is there are many Americans that are fundamentally against abortion. And for them to be forced to help pay through their tax dollars for abortions was anathema. It went against everything they believed in or felt was important. And this is supposed to be a free country. You should not be forced to have to contribute or pay for things that you fundamentally do not believe in. And lastly, this is no small deal. Eliminating $1 billion to Planned Parenthood means a lot of babies are going to live. It's going to save a lot of lives. And that's a morally just and good thing. But defunding of abortion is just a very small portion of the big, beautiful bill. An even bigger one is the profit motive behind illegal immigration. Many of the government dollars were going towards non-governmental organizations to fund welcome centers, job programs, housing for illegals, driver's license, welfare programs, on and on and on. It was profitable to be involved with the illegal immigration process. The big, beautiful bill now flips the entire profit motive to deportation and border security. Now people are going to be paid to deport people instead of importing people. Illegals are going to be paid to self-deport instead of being paid to come here and stay. Again, it's going to change the profit motive. You want to understand how something works, follow the money. We could use a simple example like Alligator Alcatraz in the state of Florida. As much as I'm in favor of that, Governor DeSantis and the state of Florida did not build Alligator Alcatraz out of the goodness of their hearts. They're going to get a boatload of federal money to detain and deport people. Companies are now getting paid to build the wall and secure the border. The Department of Defense is getting funding to secure the border. This is all set for the next 4 years at least. This will ingrain spending, make it hard to cut in the future. Special interests will grow up around deportation, just like it did with importation. And they'll fight to keep the gravy train going, just like they fought previously against deportation. They're going to actually fight in favor of it because they're making money as a result. And if you saw how close it was in the fight we had in the House and Senate, you can see how difficult it is to change spending once it starts. If the government's going to be spending money on anything, it might as well be something that's constitutional and good for the U.S. citizens. And deportation of illegals is good for U.S. citizens in many, many ways. It's not just financial. Deporting illegals will reduce crime. It'll reduce inflation, the cost of housing and food, for example. It's a simple economic fact. Supply and demand. If you have more people needing food and housing, prices will go up. If you have fewer of them, prices will go down. It's an economic fact. You'll have less demand for health care services, for example. There'll be less of a strain on the educational system. We already have a major problem with our educational system regarding student to teacher ratios. It's no coincidence that the Biden administration allowing at least 10 to 12 million illegals over a 4-year period, these are the numbers they admit to, it's probably higher than that. It's no coincidence, though, that housing prices skyrocketed when literally millions and millions of people were moved into the country, therefore increasing the demand for housing. Now that that profit motive has shifted, and the benefits of the illegals, like on Medicaid, for example, receiving Medicaid, and the profit motive for these non-governmentalist organizations to deport illegals rather than import them, we will see millions leave over the next few years. That will have a deflationary impact on the prices of everything that we need and want to live in this country. This is a good thing for citizens. In fact, I'm going to discuss this a little further, but wage growth has already increased greatest jumps in 60 years, and we're just at the beginning of this wave. Stay tuned in the next segment because I'm going to share some more things about this I think you'll find very interesting.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to contact me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com or go to the Your Personal Bank app. Now, recently, the Democrats have been furious about what they refer to as the cuts to Medicaid and Medicare. Hakeem Jeffries called it an unprecedented assault on the welfare state. Well, of course they're upset. Again, follow the money. One, they want to spend our Social Security dollars, not give it back to the people who earned them, or the Medicaid dollars or whatnot. Because here's the reality. All the money that's allocated for these benefits like Medicare, Social Security, and all, DOJ has proven there's a ton of waste and fraud. J.D. Vance, our current vice president, stated that on average, they have found that 88 cents of every dollar that went to aid went into the pockets of middlemen. Only 12 cents of every dollar actually ended up in the hands of the people it was designed to go to. As he stated, and I quote, "There's a ton of waste and fraud." That's why it's no secret politicians have learned to call their spending of taxpayers' money an investment in order to win votes from the recipients. And I like this Walter Williams quote where it states, I prefer a thief to a congressman. A thief will take your money and be on his way, but a congressman will stand there and bore you with the reasons why he took it. And they come back over and over and over again, don't they? As I stated earlier, the no tax on tips, the increased deduction on Social Security income, these are things that will benefit a significant number of Americans, U.S. citizens, particularly those of middle and lower income, which will have a massive impact on our economy over the long run. And by flipping the script, changing the profit motive on things like illegal immigration from non governmental organizations making money by importing illegals, flipping that to them now making money by deporting them, creating things like alligator Alcatraz or building the wall. Special interest groups will fight to keep that gravy train growing. So it completely flips the script. If the federal government's going to spend money, I would prefer it to do so on its constitutional duties. One of those is to protect the citizens, protect the border, military, things like that. That's what it's supposed to be doing. Now, I've got a quote here from Thomas Sowell. And if you're not familiar with him, I highly recommend reading anything from Thomas Sowell. He's one of the most famous and well-respected economic conservative commentators ever. His name's not so well known because he's conservative, but he's a very, very intelligent man and a very deep thinker. And I want to share this quote because I think it's so poignant to all of this that's going on currently. And Thomas Sowell states, "What do the poor most need? They need to stop being poor. And how can that be done? On a mass scale, except by an economy that creates vastly more wealth. Yet the political left has long held a remarkable lack of interest in how wealth is created. As far as they are concerned, wealth exists somehow, and the only interesting question is how to redistribute it." I think that's a powerful quote. It's why recently the Democrats have been so upset about the big, beautiful bill reducing the waste and fraud and eligibility of Medicare, of Medicaid, taking people off that are not eligible, shouldn't be receiving it anyway. And as Stephen Miller recently pointed out, the Democrats' party objective is to flood the West with millions upon millions of illegals from the developing world. He goes on and says, ask yourself this: why is it that Democrats are so insistent that unlimited numbers of illegals from countries that are incapable of managing their own affairs come here? Countries like Somalia, Haiti, countries that have no history of successful self-government. And they want unlimited numbers of illegals from these countries with no chance of them being able to assimilate and integrate into American life because of the scope and the scale of the immigration. You probably remember recently there were about 50 refugees from South Africa who happened to be primarily white farmers. It was determined that their lives were at risk because of their skin color. The Democrats had a massive fit over 50 people coming into the country who happened to be ethnically white, most likely conservative, yet had zero issue and encouraged millions of illegals, immigrants from countries from around the world. Stephen Miller finished up his thought when he stated, every issue that affects our quality of life, public safety, drugs, crime, education, healthcare, are all exacerbated, worsened, and undermined by mass illegal immigration. Look what it's done to our schools and our hospitals or traffic in our cities. Famously, recently, people have been posting Google Maps travel throughout the city of Los Angeles. How oftentimes now they can cross the entire city in about an hour because of the significant reduction of traffic. I've driven in Los Angeles myself many times over the last decade or two, and LA is famous for having massive traffic jams and it taking hours to cross the city, particularly during rush hours. It's one of the worst cities to drive in the country just because of the mass of cars. And the people in Los Angeles are now coming out, thank you to ICE, because of these massive ICE raids recently. It's been reported over 1 million illegals have self-deported already. Others that are still here, they're stating are scared and are hiding. The number of illegals in the county of LA is unknown. The number of illegals in our country is unknown. I've heard estimates anywhere from as low as 20 million to as high as 50 million. No one really knows. It's a commonly known fact that millions of them happen to be in LA County. And I find it ironic that citizens of Los Angeles are now thanking ICE for alleviating the traffic problems because many of these illegals either are now gone or hiding. The point Stephen Miller was making, and he finished up, I thought was very powerful. He was stating, why has the Democratic Party been so intent on flooding the West with millions of illegals from the developing world? His point was, they believe in so doing, they'll collapse the West. And they think in the rubble of that, they can rule. They can sit on top of the pile of ashes. Now, that's a very dark thought, that somebody would intentionally do that so that they could benefit themselves. But look at all the waste and fraud that's been uncovered by Doge. It's not hard to believe that many of those Democrat leaders believe that. Just look at their actions. But here's a few facts. 43% of all food stamps are given to illegals. 95% of warrants for murder in Los Angeles were for illegals. Less than 2% of illegals are picking crops, but 41% are on welfare. More than 66% of all births in California are illegals on Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal is California's version of Medicaid, which is paid for by taxpayers, by you and I. They should not receive these benefits because they're not eligible, yet more than 2/3 of all births in California to recipients on Medi-Cal were illegals. 60% of all HUD-occupied properties in the United States are illegals. Who pays for HUD? We do. 39% of all California students are illegals. 75% of Los Angeles' most wanted criminals are illegals. 50% of all gang members are illegals. And guess who's paying for all of this? If you are a taxpayer, if you're a U.S. citizen, you are paying for this. Even if you do not pay taxes and contribute to the system, you're paying for it through increased prices of everything that you need: food, clothing, housing, fuel, you name it. Again, basic economics 101, supply and demand. You have more people, you have more demand, you're going to have higher prices. That's the definition of inflation. Now, there's some good news about all of this. I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned in the next segment. Also, I help people manage to navigate this type of stuff. How do you thrive in this type of situation? Although likely getting better as we go forward, this isn't going to get fixed overnight. This is going to take time. How do you thrive through this? Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information, and I can share with you how to thrive financially rather than just survive. Stay tuned in the next segment. I got a few more things to share with you about the big, beautiful bill, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to contact me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com, or you can go to our Your Personal Bank app. Now, here's something that should piss you off. Nearly 4 million illegals were given Social Security and Medicaid in the past 4 years. If each one of them was only receiving $2,000 a month in benefits, and it's well known, many of them are receiving much more than that in housing allowances, Medicaid, and other benefits, $2,000 a month would amount to about $2 billion a month, or $24 billion a year. There's been a lot of concern over the past few years how Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid were running out of money. The Social Security trustees reports we discussed on this show were reporting how these programs were rapidly running out of money, and seniors in our country likely were going to be affected negatively in the near future. The reality is these programs were not running out of money. The reality was they were being given to people who were ineligible, illegals, and our government risked our seniors' lifeline in many cases. Whoever was responsible for this should be they should be prosecuted and go to prison. And some people are still saying, "Oh, that's not real." Well, let me give you an example, and this was confirmed in court. There's an illegal alien named Lena Marie Hernandez who'd been living under a stolen identity for more than 2 decades. She was indicted for extorting over $400,000 in stolen federal benefits and voted in the 2024 presidential election. In fact, she was busted on a surveillance camera at a bank wearing an I voted sticker on Election Day 2024, according to court documents. In court, it was determined that she received over $250,000 in Section 8 rental assistance, over $100,000 in Social Security disability benefits, over $40,000 in supplemental nutritional or food stamps. This was one person. If a small percentage of the illegal aliens benefited from Section 8 housing, Social Security disability benefits, or SNAP programs, you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that have been spent over the last couple of decades for people who are not eligible. Also, again, in court was determined that she voted illegally. The American people deserve so much better than what our government's been putting us through for the past number of years. We're not slaves. We don't need to be funding everyone. We don't need to provide Section 8 housing for the entire world and pay for it. In fact, let me give you a few statistics. This was a survey of income and program participation. Native Americans, 30%, were on any type of welfare, while 51% of illegal aliens were receiving welfare. The rates on Medicaid for illegal aliens was double. Food stamps was double. And as of April of 2025, 14 states offer government health care to people regardless of immigration status. And 7 more states offer government health care to adults, not just children, regardless of immigration status. Now, whether you live in California or New York or not, this is federal money. You are paying for this if you're a U.S. taxpayer. And let's be honest, if you have health insurance, most of us pay premiums every month and never use it unless absolutely necessary. Most of us have large deductibles and end up with thousands in medical debt if we end up with a medical situation. Yet illegals get free medical and dental. This is completely backwards and not what America is supposed to be. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my taxes going towards Medicaid for illegal aliens. A lot of people think we should receive a refund. I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but I'm glad the big, beautiful bill has passed and is going to eliminate illegal aliens from receiving Medicaid. They never should have been on it in the first place. We're the only country in the world that pays off the medical bills of people who do not even belong here. Yet we expect our own citizens to pay not only for their own bills, also the illegal aliens' medical bills. And what's worse is they expect us to accept it and just shut up. You know, we hear this all the time about health care is a right and how many of the socialist countries like in Europe provide free health care for their citizens. Well, that's easier to do if you're not paying for everybody else's. Also, we were paying for much of their military protection regarding NATO. Again, that's another area, thankfully, that President Trump has addressed. When he came in office, very few of the European countries were even paying 2% of their GDP, which was supposed to be their required contribution to be a member of NATO. And now he's pushed them to 5%, And hopefully we pull back, because there's no reason why the United States is paying for over 2/3 of Europe's defense budget. We can contribute, but we don't have to be we should not be the primary payer of that. And if we're paying a lot less for all those types of things, it might be easier to provide some kind of health care for citizens here. And I like this post I saw where somebody said, I don't work 60 hours a week, so 30% of my check can go pay for benefits to illegals. Deport them all. And that's why you're seeing the frustration bubble up and the anger as more and more people realize through Doge and other things regarding the big, beautiful bill, finding out that literally millions of illegal aliens were on Medicaid. This is why we're seeing polls of, I've seen as low as 55 and as high as 2/3 people want all illegals deported, regardless of their status. All illegals. They've taken advantage of the system for far too long. We're a generous country, we're a generous people, but there's a point where you just say, no, no more. Enough is enough. And I believe we've hit that point. And the argument that we hear that's repeated over and over again is that most Americans are descendants of immigrants. They try to pull at our heartstrings. But here's the bottom line. That statement ignores the fact that most Americans are not the descendants of illegal immigrants. I happen to be that one of them myself. I'm first generation American. Shared this story many times when my dad escaped from Hungary. Under communism, he risked his life literally to escape. He was a political refugee. If he had been caught, they would have put him in the gulag or killed him. That was a legitimate reason to leave the country. He didn't want to leave. He loved his country. But he wasn't given a choice. And fortunately, he was given a second chance, eventually immigrated to America, did it the right way, became a U.S. citizen, became a very proud U.S. citizen, and very appreciative of the fact that this country gave him another chance. Those are the kind of immigrants we want in this country. Now, there's some good news, as I stated. Net migration has turned negative for the first time in 50 years. Blue-collar wage growth has just hit a 60-year record increase. We're already seeing wage gains and better conditions when companies replace illegals with Americans. The argument was often said, oh, who's going to pick the crops, or Americans won't do these jobs. You know, we were never given the chance, were we? There's many people out there who would be happy to do factory jobs or other types of jobs. They just don't want to do it for slave wages. And the dirty little secret is corporations wanted cheap labor. So this was a combination, the Democrats wanting to bring in massive amounts of people so they could count them in the census to obtain more House seats and electoral college votes, and then a path to citizenship to allow them to vote. Their interests coincided with large companies that wanted cheap labor. But it wasn't for the benefit of the country or the average American. And this is another point where people have gotten really frustrated. I saw this post where this gentleman pointed out, and this is a very typical example. By the time I'm 67, over 600,000 will be paid into Social Security on my behalf. That money would have been worth about $2 million if I had gotten a 5% return. By the way, I have guaranteed, insured, tax-free, highly liquid returns over 6% today. Tax-free, 8% taxable with annuities, tax deferred. 5% has been something I could get for people guaranteed throughout my 25-year career. So that's not outrageous at any point. His point was the money would have been worth about $2 million. If he'd gotten a 5% return, his annual interest would have been about $100,000 a year. The government promises me $3,000 a month at age 67. So instead of receiving $100,000 a year, he's going to get about $36,000 a year. And his question is, how is that not theft? He's correct. And this post pointed out when the income tax was first introduced, it was a temporary measure, and it started at 1%, and it was only supposed to be for the top 1% of income earners. Today, people are paying up to 30%, 7% of their income, plus being taxed on everything else you can possibly imagine. The fact of the matter is taxation is theft. They're right. And to add insult to injury, When the government takes money from you and I, taxation is not voluntary. Try not paying it. They'll come after you with a gun or put you in jail. So it's involuntary taxation. And according to J.D. Vance and Mark Rubio, only 12 cents of every dollar sent as foreign aid was spent on actually what it was supposed to be spent on. The rest was laundered by non-government organizations and their subcontractors. That level of waste and fraud is incredibly frustrating when you're forced to work hard, pay the tax, and you see it go to illegals, you see it to go to these NGOs and everywhere else. I'm very thankful the big, beautiful bill passed. It's a step in the right direction. I wish it was more. And I hope and pray that things will get better and they'll continue on this path to reduce waste and fraud, make things more efficient, get rid of people that are not qualified or not eligible, like illegals, and make life better in general for U.S. citizens, which is the job of the U.S. government. Their job is to look out for our best interest. Period. If they do anything else other than that, they're not doing their constitutional duty. Now, if you want to reduce taxes, increase your returns, reduce your market risk, increase your liquidity, create positive arbitrage, create a guaranteed lifetime income, or increase your amount of income for retirement either now or in the future. It's the golden era of fixed assets. I can show you numbers that haven't been available in over 40 years. If you're interested, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information. Stay tuned next week for some more great info. And as long as it's on our money, in God we trust.
Listen Tuesdays at noon and Saturdays at 1 to the Your Personal Bank Show for more information. Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests of this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Some products discussed may have limitations and not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Dividend rates and bank line of credit rates may change. For current rates, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. Again, that's 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com.